On today's edition of The Front Row, we are at the Lubbock Public Media Studios in the Lubbock Cultural District. Our special guest on the program today is Andres Ruzo. He is a geothermal scientist, educator, and science communicator, and he's going to be doing that in Lubbock on Friday evening at the Buddy Holly Hall. Andres, welcome to the show. Thank you for being with us today.
Oh, thank you. I'm honored to be here and very excited to be with everyone in Lubbock.
Great. Have you ever been to Texas to Lubbock before?
Well, I live in Dallas,
Oh,
so
great.
I definitely have been to Texas, so that's not too far. I've been through Lubbock. I got to go to Caprock Canyons as an undergrad, which is a lot of fun. You guys have so much, frankly, I think beautiful scenery over there. As a geologist, there's a lot of great things to see, and there's so much rich history too with all the Comanches and Ransom Canyon and all the stuff you guys have over there. So it's excited to be back. Let
Great.
me put it that way.
Well, speaking of the times that you've had, tell us a little bit about you and your background and your journey to becoming a geothermal scientist.
Absolutely. So I specialize in geothermal systems. So this is when you think of Earth's heat, people immediately think, oh, volcanoes. And yes, absolutely. I want you to think about volcanoes. I want you to envision all of that. And we're going to talk about this a little bit in the show about what makes that story come together, right? You definitely have the rock side, you've got the gases, you've got the modeling, which is just computer modeling, if you will, of all of it, but also the water side. And that water side of volcanoes, simply put, right? I'm simplifying here, but it gives you an idea, is the geothermal systems, those hot water, the hydrothermal hot water systems. Geo means earth, thermal means heat. How is Earth's heat moving around? How is it, getting sucked up by this water, if you will, and creating hot springs and fumaroles and all this cool stuff. So I work on geothermal systems, so think hot springs, volcanoes all over the world, and yeah, it's a lot of fun. So how did all of that start? Well, for me, my life was always between Nicaragua, Peru, and the United States, specifically Texas and Florida. And in Nicaragua, my family comes from, I mean, we are a big agricultural family, and we have grown coffee on the side of the Casita volcano in northern Nicaragua, Chinandega specifically, for the past 4 generations. So, it getting to spend so many of my sort of core memories on that family farm, playing with the geothermal systems, throwing hot mud at each other and just interacting with Earth's heat in a different way, it stays with you and it gives you a whole new appreciation for the world around us. Then, as I grew up, again, the constant was being exposed to this big, incredible world. And whether you're in the canyons and landscapes of Texas and the beautiful forests that we have, at least in the areas that I grew up in, or in Peru in the Andes and the Amazon, or in Nicaragua's volcanoes and jungles. I mean, you connect to your world. And when someone comes in, this is me at university, and taking my first geology class, someone basically said, all right, think about, like, look at that landscape. There's a reason why every ridge is there, every mountain is there, every flat land is there. Getting the opportunity to understand that you can read the earth like a book was very exciting to me because everything ultimately stems from that.
How wonderful. And now you're here today doing work with National Geographic Live and a
Yep.
big presentation in the Buddy Holly Hall on Friday evening at 7:30. I noticed the title is called Hunt for Sleeping Giants. So for people who have not seen one of these National Geographic Lives, what does all that mean? What will they see when they come to enjoy this?
All right. Well, so what's cool about National Geographic Live is, well, keyword live. These are live events. So think of a mix of a documentary coming to life. So basically, in coming up with this show, I got to work with this sort of a production team, just like I would have for a documentary. And I hosted a show in Nat Geo Latin America for a couple of years, right? And same sort of production style there, right? But this one is live. So you get a literal front row seat to a documentary. You can see some of that documentary quality video, documentary quality, photography, and obviously the stories. But you get to interact, right? The idea is making it interactive, making it live, so we can talk about, I mean, ultimately, this show, Hunt for Sleeping Giants, it's really about the connection between Earth and humanity, the way I see it, right? Again, I have gotten so lucky to get to travel all over the world. And one constant that I've seen is anytime humans have interacted with geothermal systems or volcanoes, right? And I am a geologist, but I'm also an expedition leader. I'm literally an explorer. That's my title. So I've gotten to work a lot on with biologists and archaeologists and anthropologists and historians anywhere humans experience these geothermal systems, there is immediately significance. And I think that is ultimately the core takeaway. Our landscapes tell stories. They also hold human stories. So we will talk about volcanoes, we will talk about geothermal systems, and we'll also talk about that human connection between all of them. Where are we? Who are we in this landscape? What can we learn from them? The title, ultimately sleeping giants, you've got different legends associated with volcanoes, that they could be sleeping giants, they could be spurned lovers, right? You've got all these great stories, legends around that. And I do get into a lot of that. What's the human, again, the human connection to our landscapes, the legends, the stories, the myths on one side, but also the science behind it. So how do they work, right? How do they work? How do we understand them? How do we understand our place with them?
When you say sleeping giants, that reminds me of what just happened in Hawaii, for instance, and or Mount St. Helens, or in my lifetime, things like that. Enormity of that is really kind of breathtaking.
It really is because like you have to think about it. For humans, I mean, really, we're lucky if we get to hit 80 years old. And that is a blink of an eye in deep time, in geologic time. So a volcano might be around thousands, hundreds of thousands of years. I mean, as a complex, right? Because the system evolves over time and it changes and it's a dynamic process. I mean, you've got some with million year stories. Go to the Hawaiian Islands. You can literally see that hotspot track, right? And see the seamount chain that's resulting of that going back millions and millions and millions of years. So it is definitely a perspective game. And that's one of the things that honestly first enamored me with geology. I loved the fact that the earliest geologists were also philosophers, because if you could not comprehend the concept of deep time, you weren't going to get it. If you were working on a human timescale, you were not going to get it. And I think that that's beautiful. I think it's humbling. I think it shows us that, a lot of what I'm going to talk about in this presentation is that there's a duality. We need to understand our world around us in the best way possible, and science gives us the best tools to do that. But there's also a human element, because we know that sometimes, to convince humans, science is not enough. So how do we tap into that human side as well, looking with both eyes, right? Hearing with both ears, and to try to find a more comprehensive story to, understand this with the best science, the best empirical evidence possible, but also how do we get that and actually connect with people to learn how to live around these things better, how to understand something that really is so much bigger than much of human comprehension.
I see behind you a book, I guess, The Boiling River, and I noticed that that's been referred to in the press material that you have, The Boiling River in the Amazon. What is that
Mhm.
all about?
That is one of the most spectacular places on Earth. I am very lucky to get to work in the heart of the Peruvian Amazon at a place called the Boiling River. And this is truly, I don't want to steal too much of my thunder, but it's the largest so far, it's the largest documented thermal river on the planet. You're talking about almost 4 miles of thermal flow, much of that hot enough to kill you. And it's a special place. Culturally, it is a very significant site. It's a culturally important site of healing, sacred site, right? So again, a lot of this presentation is going to be informed by how do we walk that balance? How do we see the world with both eyes? What can we learn from each other? And our interpretations might be very different, but there is a shared observation and there's a shared human experience that I think can, again, how do we live better with all of this, our planet? So the Boiling River is a really special. I want to say so much more, but I gotta.
Right. So tell me, you're obviously full-time career in geology and geothermal things.
Mhm.
How did you get hooked up with National Geographic to do these presentations?
So I'm at Southern Methodist University. I'm at SMU, and I was very lucky, right? When I started my PhD, and they had a grant workshop because National Geographic Society we have grants. And if I know, I mean, you can't talk about Lubbock without talking about Texas Tech, right? In fact, one of my cousins, funnily enough, is a professor at Texas Tech, and I'm really excited to see her. Um, but we had these grant opportunities, and National Geographic Society, right, founded in 1888. We want to inspire people to care about the planet, and there are grants available for researchers, for photographers, media people, scientists, right, conservationists. And I was so lucky that I got my first grant in 2010. One led to another, to another, to another, and the end result was that ultimately I would get offered a dream job, which I took up. So I am unbelievably lucky in that. And yeah, I mean, I have students, I work with students a lot, and all I can say is, a job well done will take you to the next thing. It's the best resume you can do is a job well done. And
Well, we get to see the results of all of that on Friday evening at the Buddy Holly Hall here in the Lubbock Cultural District. Andres Ruzo is here, and he will talk to us in a presentation by National Geographic Live called The Hunt for Sleeping Giants. Andres, thank you so much for being our guest on the front row today.
oh, it's been my pleasure, and I really cannot wait to get to see everyone in Lubbock. It'll be fun.